Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something that shapes huge companies, but often stays hidden. We're talking about transfer pricing.
It sounds technical, but it has massive ripple effects.
Exactly. And our mission here is to really unpack these, often quite hidden financial decisions inside big firms, how they affect everything, from one manager's bonus right up to the whole company strategy.
And the source material we've got is really interesting on this. Lots of detail.
It is. So the big question we're asking for you listening is this. How do companies actually set the prices for things moving between their own departments? And maybe more importantly, why should you care?
Because, spoiler alert, it matters a lot more than you might think.
Okay, so let's kick off. What exactly are transfer prices? Lay it out for us.
Sure. Simply put, they're the internal price tags, the monetary values used when goods or services flow between different bits of the same company, divisions, departments, whatever you call them.
Right, internal invoices, basically.
Pretty much. And the materials we looked at say they're, almost inevitably needed once a business gets split up into different profit centers or units that report their own performance.
Yeah.
You need some way to account for those internal movements.
Makes sense. You need to track value.
Precisely. And to make it concrete, think about this scenario. Pulled from the sources, you've got Division A. They make some components, and their cost is, say, $30 per unit.
Okay, $30 cost for A.
Right. Now, they transfer these components internally to Division B, and the agreed transfer price is $50.
So B effectively buys them from A for $50.
Exactly. Then Division B takes these, does its own thing, adds maybe another $20 in costs.
As value.
And then sells the finished product out to the real world to an external customer for $90.
Okay, $90 final sale price.
Now look at the profits. Division A makes $20 profit per unit, right? That's the $50 transfer price minus their $30 cost.
Yep, $20 for A.
And Division B also makes $20 profit. That's the $90 revenue minus the $50 they paid A minus their own $20 cost.
All right, $20 for B too. So what about the company overall?
Well, the total company profit per unit is $40. You can see that as the two divisional profits added together, $20 plus $20.
Got it.
Or you could just look at the final $90 selling price and subtract all the costs the company incurred, the initial $30 from A and the $20 from B. Still $40.
Okay, the company total stays the same.
Yes, but, and this is crucial, while the company's $40 profit is fixed in this example, regardless of the transfer price, every single dollar you shift that $50 transfer price changes things internally.
How so?
Well, if you increase the transfer price by $1, Division A makes $1 more profit, but Division B makes $1 less. It's a zero-sum game between the divisions for that internal profit slice.
Ah, I see. So even though the company pie is the same size, how you slice it internally with that transfer price really matters to the divisions.
It matters hugely. It's not just numbers on a page. That internal price acts like a silent lever. Shifting it even slightly can distort how divisions behave, what decisions they make.
And potentially mess up the overall company result.
Potentially, yes. It can lead to decisions that are good for one division, but actually hurt the company's total profitability. Misaligned incentives, basically.
Wow. Okay, that's a much bigger deal than just an accounting entry then. Let's unpack that impact a bit more. Beyond the numbers, what are the sort of real-world consequences if a company gets this transfer price wrong?
Oh, the consequences can be very direct, very profound. First, think about performance evaluation.
How managers are judged, bonuses, that kind of thing.
Exactly. That transfer price directly flows into a division's reported profit. And that profit figure is usually key for measuring performance, right? Using metrics like ROI, return on investment, or RI, residual income. So a high transfer price makes the buying division look less profitable, maybe even loss-making on paper.
Even if they're running efficiently.
Even if they are. And the selling division looks maybe artificially successful. This can genuinely mislead top management. They might see Division B's poor numbers and decide to cut investment, or worse.
Close it down.
Potentially, yes. Close down a division that looks like an underperformer because of the transfer price, even if it's actually vital to the whole company's value chain.
That's quite alarming. What else?
Well, linked to that is performance-related pay and motivation.
Right, the human element.
Definitely. Imagine you're managing Division B. You hit your production targets, quality's great, but your bonus is slashed because head office set a high internal transfer price that made your division look bad financially.
You'd be pretty unhappy.
You'd be furious.
Yeah.
Managers, staff, if their pay is tied to these potentially distorted divisional results, they can get incredibly frustrated. especially if they feel it's down to factors they can't control, like being forced to buy internally at a bad price.
And that impacts morale.
Hugely. It damages morale, kills motivation, and then you can actually see a real decline in performance. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The perception of poor performance, driven by the transfer price, leads to genuine poor performance.
So it's not just numbers, it's culture, motivation, people's livelihoods. That adds a whole different dimension to it.
Okay, so given all these potential pitfalls, it sounds like finding the perfect transfer price is maybe impossible.
That's generally true. The sources emphasize there's often no one right transfer price in a given situation. It's usually a balancing act.
So if perfection isn't realistic, what makes a transfer price, well, good? What are we aiming for?
Ideally, a good system tries to achieve three main things, though it's tough to nail all of them perfectly. First, it should try to preserve divisional autonomy.
Meaning let managers manage.
Kind of. If you've decentralized, given managers responsibility for their division's profit, they need some freedom to make decisions. They'll naturally resent being forced to trade internally at a price that hurts their results, especially if they think they could do better dealing externally.
But there's a catch.
The catch is full autonomy isn't always best for the company. A division acting purely in its own interest might make a decision that lowers overall group profit. So it's a balance. Okay, autonomy, but balanced. What's the second characteristic?
The second is crucial. Goal congruence.
Goal congruence. Sounds like corporate jargon.
Maybe a bit. But the idea is simple. It means setting things up so that when a division manager makes a decision that's best for their division's profit, it's also the best decision for the entire company's profit.
Aligning incentives, basically, everyone pulling in the same direction.
Exactly. And a key part of this is that all the divisions involved actually have to want to trade at the determined price. It doesn't work if the seller is keen, but the buyer refuses, or vice versa.
Right. Need willing participants on both sides.
Yeah.
And the third thing.
Third, ideally, the system should permit each division to make a reasonable profit. Profit is motivating, right?
Sure is.
And it's essential for fairly measuring performance. If a transfer price is set so unfairly that one division basically can't make a profit no matter how well they operate, that's demotivating and unfair, especially if bonuses depend on it.
Okay, so autonomy, goal congruence, and fair profit potential for everyone. That sounds like a tricky trifecta to achieve.
It really is.
So knowing what we're aiming for, how do companies actually set these prices? Let's get practical. What about basing it on costs? That seems like a logical starting point.
It often is. Let's look at cost-based methods first, and let's simplify things for a moment, like the sources do. Assume Division A can only sell to B, and B can only buy from A. No outside options for now.
Okay, a closed system.
Right. One approach is using variable cost, sometimes called marginal cost. So if Division A's variable cost to make the component is, say, $18 from one of the examples.
Just the direct costs of making one more unit, labor, materials.
Exactly, ignoring fixed costs like rent or salaries for now. If the transfer price is set at that $18 variable cost, it often leads to, well, very good economic decisions for the company as a whole.
Why is that?
Because Division B now sees the true marginal cost to the group of getting that component. So when Division B makes decisions to maximize its profit, like deciding whether to accept a final order price, those decisions automatically align with maximizing the group's profit. You get that goal congruence we talked about.
Okay. Sounds great for the company overall, but what about the divisions?
There's the rub. Major drawbacks. First, Division A will consistently report a loss on these internal transfers because the $18 price doesn't cover any of its fixed costs.
Ouch. That's got to be demotivating for Division A's manager.
Hugely demotivating.
Yeah.
And it completely distorts performance measurement. Division A looks terrible. Division B looks deceptively profitable because it's getting components below their full cost. Plus, Division A has very little incentive to control its costs efficiently because any slack just gets passed on to B at that variable cost price.
Okay, so variable cost pricing. Good for overall decisions, bad for motivation and fairness.
That's a good summary. So what's another option? Full cost.
Including fixed costs now.
Yes. So maybe the full cost for Division A is $30 per unit. $80 variable plus $12 fixed. If the transfer price is set at $30, Division A at least breaks even on paper. That feels, as one source puts it, slightly more satisfactory for A.
Better for Division A's morale, I guess.
Oh.
But I sense another but coming.
You sense correctly. The big danger with full cost pricing is that it can lead to what are called dysfunctional decisions, bad choices for the company.
Give me an example.
Okay, using full cost, the transfer price is $30. Division B adds its own variable costs of, say, $10. So from B's perspective, its marginal cost for the final product seems to be $40, $30 transfer price plus $10 own cost.
Right, that's what B sees on its books.
Now imagine the final market price for the product suddenly drops to $35. What does Division B do?
Well, if their cost looks like $40 and they can only sell for $35, they wouldn't make the sale, right? They'd report a $5 loss per unit.
Exactly. Division B, acting rationally based on the transfer price it pays, refuses the business. But look at it from the whole company's perspective. The actual marginal cost to the group is only $28. That's A's $18 variable cost plus B's $10 variable cost.
Ah, so the company could still make a $7 contribution, $35 price, $28 true cost on that sale.
Precisely. But because of the full cost transfer price, the profitable opportunity is rejected. That's a dysfunctional decision, triggered by the transfer pricing method.
So the internal price signal is actively misleading Division B into hurting the overall company. Wow.
Oh, it's a classic problem.
Yeah.
And what happens then? Head office might see the missed opportunity and force Division B to take the order.
Which undermines that autonomy we talked about earlier.
Completely. Division B's manager is forced to do something that makes their division look bad on paper. Resentment builds.
Okay, what about full cost plus, adding a markup for Division A? Does that help?
It can help motivate Division A, letting them show a profit. And it might still allow Division B to profit if the final market price is high enough. But it doesn't solve the dysfunctional decision problem. In fact, it can make it worse because the transfer price is even higher. You still run the risk of rejecting profitable business for the group when the market price dips.
So it seems like moving away from variable cost is inherently risky for decision making.
It is. The takeaway seems to be, once you leave variable cost pricing, there's always a risk of these dysfunctional decisions, unless you impose some kind of complex upper limit, maybe tied to the final revenue B can get. But that gets complicated fast.
It really sounds like these internal pricing meetings could get intense, trying to balance all these conflicting goals.
I imagine they can. Whiteboards full of calculations and probably some raised voices.
Okay, now let's add another layer of reality. What happens when there is an external market? When Division A could sell its components outside the company, or Division B could buy similar components from an external supplier.
Yes. That changes the game significantly. Let's go back to our first example. Transfer price was $50. A's cost was $30. B's added cost $20. Final price $90. Now, imagine that intermediate component A makes. It can be bought or sold on the open market for $40.
Okay, an external market price of $40 exists.
Right. So what happens? Division A, the seller, looks at the internal $50 price versus the external $40 price. They'd much rather sell internally for $50, wouldn't they?
Sure, $10 more profit per unit for them.
But Division B, the buyer, sees the internal $50 price versus the external $40 price. What do they want to do?
They'll want to buy outside for $40, save $10 per unit on their costs.
Exactly. So you have a conflict. A wants to sell internally, B wants to buy externally.
So what's best for the company overall in this case?
Here's where it gets interesting. If Division B buys externally for $40, the company incurs an actual cash outflow of $40 for that component. But what's the actual cost if Division A makes it internally?
Wasn't A's variable cost only $18?
Precisely. So from the company's perspective, it's much better. $40 external cost versus $18 internal variable cost for the transfer to happen internally. But the division's incentives are pushing them apart. B, buying externally, actually hurts the company's overall profit in this case.
So how on earth do you get them to trade internally when their immediate incentives are pointing outwards? This seems like the core dilemma.
It really is. And this is where the thinking shifts towards finding an acceptable range for the transfer price, considering both division's perspectives and opportunity costs.
Okay, break that down. Minimum and maximum prices.
Exactly. Let's start with the minimum transfer price. This is from the selling division's point of view, Division A here. What's the absolute lowest price they'd accept to sell internally?
Their cost, presumably.
Well, specifically their marginal cost plus any opportunity cost.
Opportunity cost. What they give up.
Right. What profit do they lose out on by selling internally instead of using their resources for something else? Now, if Division A has spare capacity, meaning its workers and machines aren't busy making stuff for external customers anyway,
then there's no opportunity cost. They aren't giving up other sales.
Correct. In that case, the opportunity cost is zero. So the theoretical minimum transfer price is just their marginal cost, maybe that $18. But Division A isn't going to be happy selling at cost, right? They'll want some profit, so they'll negotiate upwards from that minimum.
Okay, what if they don't have spare capacity? What if selling to Division B means they can't sell to an external customer?
Good question. If there's no spare capacity, then selling internally does have an opportunity cost. It's the contribution margin, selling price minus variable cost, they would have earned from the external sale they have to give up.
So the minimum price they accept internally would have to cover that lost profit?
Essentially, yes. In this case, the minimum transfer price logically becomes the external market price, $40 in our example, minus any cost savings from selling internally.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't need fancy packaging or delivery costs for an internal transfer.
So maybe slightly less than the external market price to reflect those savings?
Could be. At that price, market price less internal savings, Division A should be indifferent. They make the same profit whether they sell inside or outside. That's their floor.
Okay, that covers the seller's minimum. What about the buyer, Division B? What's the maximum they'd pay?
That one's usually simpler. The maximum transfer price from the buying division's perspective is simply the lowest price they could get the component for from an external supplier.
The market price, basically. The $40 in our example.
Exactly. Why would they pay Division A $50 internally if they can just go buy it for $40 outside? They wouldn't, unless forced. So their ceiling is that external market price.
And maybe they'd argue for less than the market price internally, pointing to those savings Division A makes on packaging and delivery.
They absolutely might. That's where the negotiation happens. If A's minimum is, say, $38, market price less savings, and B's maximum is $48, market price, there's a small range, $38, $40, where a deal could potentially be struck that benefits both divisions and ensures the trade happens internally, which is best for the company overall.
Finding that sweet spot, it really does feel like a strategic negotiation, doesn't it? Not just accounting.
Absolutely. It's about aligning incentives, managing relationships between divisions, and ultimately steering the ship towards maximum overall profitability.
It's complex stuff.
This has been fascinating. We've really gone deep into these hidden wires of profit. We started with just defining transfer prices.
The internal price tags.
Then we saw their huge impact on how performance is measured, on people's motivation, bonuses.
Inside, definitely.
And then we got into the nitty-gritty of how you might actually calculate them, cost-based methods with their pitfalls.
Especially those dysfunctional decisions. And then the complexity added by external markets leading to this idea of minimum and maximum acceptable prices, this negotiation range.
Right, trying to find that balance.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for everyone listening? What does this all mean?
I think the core message is that transfer pricing isn't some dusty corner of accounting. It's actually a really powerful strategic lever.
It influences behavior, right?
Profoundly. It shapes decisions, affects profitability right down to the divisional level, and can even influence the overall structure and success of the company. It's much more central than it seems.
So, a final thought to leave people chewing on.
Well, maybe think about this. Consider how these internal pricing choices happening inside big organizations, things that seem quite abstract, how they directly connect to very real outcomes. A manager getting a bonus or not. An entire factory staying open or facing closure.
What brings it home?
It does. And maybe ask yourself, how does knowing about these internal dynamics change how you look at the companies you interact with? How you interpret news about their performance or restructuring? Does it make you look beyond just the headline profit number?
Definitely gives you a new lens to view things through. Fantastic. Thanks so much for unpacking all that.
My pleasure. It's a really important topic.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep exploring those hidden mechanics behind the business world.